Welcome back to TYT Sports. Class is in session. We are talking tactics early on in the season. How will Manchester United's team look this season under the guidance of that tactical genius, Jose Mourinho? We're going to break it down right here, so do not go anywhere. Let's talk some tactics. You will see, by the way, and before you throw anything at the screen and shout expletives my way, I've put blanks in here, not because I don't think that Manchester United have the players to fit that role. I mean, if you guys have seen my video on TYT Sports, I did say that Jose Mourinho has every right to rip apart Manchester United's starting 11 and really bring in some new faces, because mediocre is now the new normality in Manchester United, and Jose Mourinho does not do mediocre. So at right back, many people may say Darmian could come in there and do a job. I was reluctant to put blank in there, but I think Jose Mourinho, he doesn't like two attacking fullbacks, and I'll talk about that when I reference his most successful team, in my opinion, Inter Milan. We'll get to that in a minute. Smalling, Blin almost could have been cut out as well. I think that he likes two strong defenders who are able to cover each other, physical, as we see the Lucio-Samuel partnership at Inter Milan was so successful. With Chelsea, John Terry, of course, was one of the stonewalls throughout his career, and I think that Daley Blind may be one that's used as a versatile player that can maybe come in as a utility, but maybe not a starter. Shaw is someone I think he'll stick with. Blank in the middle of the park, because you have the likes of Schneiderlin, you have Carrick, you have Schweinsteiger, you have Herrera, you have Mata, all useful players. But when it comes to Jose Mourinho's system, I honestly don't think that they're going to make the cut. And I'll talk about that in a minute. At right attacking mid, no one. Attacking mid, Rooney, Martial and Rashford. That's just who I think, because Jose Mourinho is he's very picky when it comes to what players play in certain positions. And he might not go with the biggest talent. He's let talent go in his previous clubs, but he goes with people who get the job done. So talking about get the job done, I'm going to talk tactically and refer back to one of his most successful teams, a treble-winning Inter Milan team that went on and defied odds against Barcelona and then just embarrassed Bayern Munich in that Champions League final. This was their team. So we all remember this team. Julio Cesar in goal, Zanetti, Samuel, Lucio and Macon. Midfield, he would maybe go between Stankovic, Mota, Cambiaso would be in there, that structured defensive midfielder that Jose Mourinho loves to have in his squads. Makaleli, of course, did that job very well in his Chelsea years. Pandev, Schneider, Etu, who switched his role when he came into this Inter Milan team, played a little bit more on the right-hand side, but I'm going to talk about what he got out of Etu that he maybe can get out of Martial, playing him up top with Rashford. And Milito, what a striker he was under Jose Mourinho's era. So as we come to the iPad first, I'm going to talk about something and I'll throw back to the screen here. One thing that I'm going to see straight away, right? So many of you guys may think that Darmian can make the cut at Jose Mourinho's team, but Jose Mourinho does not like having two attacking fullbacks. He doesn't even like having one at times. Now, Macon was very attacking at Inter Milan, and what he did very well is he allowed for his structure, that 4-2-3-1, to be versatile and adapt with someone like Macon pushing forward. That's going to be Luke Shaw's role, because I don't think he'll go with Darmian and Shaw. As you see with his Inter Milan team, imagine this was Macon right here. When Macon pushed forward, what happened naturally is you get Zanetti, who can play centrally as a defender, tucked in. Far too often this year at Old Trafford, we'd be left exposed at the back because we wouldn't have a holding midfielder who would tuck in. Oftentimes you would find Schweinsteiger, Carrick or everyone else kind of cut too high up the park and we'd be reluctant to a counter-attack. But at his Inter Milan team, they were absolutely drilled. If Macon bombed forward, Etu would join the attack as a front two. Macon would take up this role and it would almost turn into a 3-4-3 at times. You'd have maybe someone like Stankovic would fill in a role, maybe someone like Schneider would pick up the ball in the middle of the park, and you'd see Macon would kind of take up that role as the attacking mid. But they wouldn't have that fullback caught high up the park. Zanetti would tuck in. And as we come back here, it just so happens that I've prepared this very well, and we have that exact formation right here. So this is kind of what it looked like. You would have Samuel and Lucio, who are just two phenomenal centre-backs, which he's going to try and emulate in Manchester United. If you think that this is just something that Jose Mourinho had once upon a time, he thrives for this every single team he plays at. He does not accept anything other than excellent. And that is what he's going to try and emulate. Zanetti, what a player he was for Inter Milan. He would tuck in, he would support going forward, but not as much so as Macon, who was one of the main reasons that I think this team was so dominant going forward, because he was very versatile, and when he did get forward, my God, he attacked with force. And because you had those two defensive midfielders, Cambiaso would naturally tuck in, be that patrol kind of like midfielder that would just monitor, that I've been calling out for Manchester United all season. Plenty of candidates in there, but none of them really I would say, executed excellence in that role, the way Matic did at Chelsea, Makaleli beforehand, and Cambiasso here. So that's one thing you're going to see. You're going to see him bring in a fullback very similar to Ivanovic before he got horrible. Because trust me, I know Ivanovic. I criticise him week in, week out when he played for Chelsea this season. But previous year, Ivanovic was that kind of, I would say, fullback that sat in a little bit deeper, and he would allow for someone on the left-hand side to push up. That's what Luke Shaw will be able to do. Shaw comes back fit, fully ready, not the way he turned up for pre-season this year. Come on, mate. Let's make sure everything's fully in check and you've got a good pre-season behind you. And he will be that attacking fullback, but then he's going to bring in someone at right back. He's going to bring in someone who's going to sit a little bit deeper, act as that central defender role when the likes of Luke Shaw pushes up. And the reason why this is going to work, I would say, in two types of ways it's going to help Manchester United is because we're crying out for Martial to play more of a central role. But when Martial partners Rashford up top, there is something very cohesive about those two working together. They're very quick, they are aggressive going forward, but whenever Marcus Rashford was partnered with anyone, whether it be Lingard coming in or Martial coming in, and I always talked about working in pairs of two, that is what Jose Mourinho pushed for when it came to Inter Milan. Eto'o came in off the back of a successful season at Barcelona where he was that main striker. He played alongside Henry up there and he played alongside Messi and he had to kind of hold the line at times. So when he came into Inter Milan, Jose Mourinho was like, okay, Milito's our top striker. He's the one that's going to hold up the ball. He's going to lead the line. But Eto'o, this kind of gives you a free role to come in behind and play as a second striker. That is just a perfect recipe for Martial to go on. So as you're going to see, Rashford's going to push up top. And naturally, if we have a defender that's going to tuck inside, this will allow for the likes of Luke Shaw to push forward. And then before you know it, Martial can come in and partner Rashford up top. And before you know it, you get the best of both worlds. Martial is a good player playing out wide. He can take people on one-on-one. But then he's going to tuck inside and he's going to play as a front two with Rashford. And that's all pending that Jose Mourinho goes in and either adjusts Darmian's game to make him more of a defensively structured fullback, or he's going to bring in someone who's going to do that job without having to be worked on. Because Jose Mourinho, as much as he's got many qualities, he's not patient with his players. He doesn't really like to rely on youth. He likes to bring in people that are going to get the job done. And if you see Shaw's going to push forward, he's a very good player at overlapping. His main job, as Macon's was not always to get on the ball, but just to stretch defences. Macon would come forward and would try and create this gap in here for a midfielder to make the run in, or just to allow for the fact that someone like Martial, or in that case Samuel Eto'o, could come in and partner the front two. And let's talk about the midfield. So Jose Mourinho, as I mentioned and I alluded to before, Matic executed excellence in his first season. His sole job was to be that anchor in the midfield and allow for Fabregas to push forward. So it was not surprising that Chelsea suffered this year. Fabregas' game suffered because Matic no longer simply executed excellence in that defensive midfield role. He was kind of wandering out of position at times and getting caught up higher up the park and making tackles that he didn't have to. So you better believe that if Jose Mourinho brings in anyone, and by the way, Matic has been rumoured to be one of the players to bring in, I don't think it'd be a bad shout. It's going to be someone that has the engine to just simply patrol that area. I think Carrick's too old for it now. I think Schneiderlin's too reckless sometimes, wanders too far over the park. And trust me, I know they're good players. But similar to the comment section on my video when I was talking about Manchester United, Man United fans, for some reason now, we've been trained to kind of accept people that are doing a good job. Just accept it. I mean, there could be worse. It could be Fellaini. It could be this guy. But that's not what Jose Mourinho is going to push for. Excellence has to be the standard. It has to be someone that's going to come in, defensive midfielder role, and make that his own. If it's an N'Golo Kante, good decision. If it's a Diarra, good decision. It's someone who's coming in solely to close down space. For instance, the ball's in possession here. What Jose Mourinho's team always kind of stood by is that triangle formation of pressure. You have to have someone sitting a little bit deep to try and cut out that pass if it's trying to find a striker in defeat. You have someone putting the pressure on, and you have someone backing up. And it's that triangle that you see Atletico Madrid execute all over the park. Diego Simeone literally performs drills where the ball gets played into a corner and they put pressure to try and stop this through pass into the midfield, to stop the pass down the line and force teams to make these long balls in behind. Watch Jose Mourinho's Inter Milan team against Barcelona. Maybe I'm too obsessed with this. I watch tactics way too much, but it's my bread and butter. There's a reason why I'm soon to be called the Gary Neville of YouTube, a much better looking Peaky Blinders-esque Gary Neville of YouTube. But it's because this sort of stuff I can respect. I don't rag on Atletico Madrid because they're a good defensive team. But when you watched Atletico Madrid in the Champions League final, why did Real Madrid have a certain amount of space in the first half? Because they weren't putting enough pressure on. They weren't forming that triangular pressure. They weren't. I don't think Griezmann and Torres were working to get behind the ball enough. And then because they never started with an attacking midfielder, Fernandes and Gabi were caught too deep. And Modric had a lot of space. Whereas Jose Mourinho prides himself on forcing teams into making decisions that they don't want to do. Even Manchester United strikers are going to have a job to do in forming these, I would say, little pockets of pressure all over the park. So looking here, if the ball happens to be in possession right here, what Jose Mourinho is going to want to happen is he's going to want someone like Rashford to work in here, Martial to kind of form this pressure, and then push forward, whether it's Wayne Rooney, and form this triangle once again, cutting out the pass into the middle, cutting out the pass back, and therefore forcing the long ball. And this is my tagline: football is all about that butterfly effect. It all comes from whoever puts that pressure on, and everyone else has to follow suit, because if one person breaks that effect, the whole system is going to break down. And far too often this year, Fellaini wouldn't step up when he had to. Mata wouldn't close that space. But everyone has a job to do defensively. That's why I love Jose Mourinho's Inter Milan team, because they work their ass off to get behind the ball. So, for instance, as I mentioned there, this pressure here has to be emulated with another triangle here and another triangle here to make sure that everyone has their job. So you're cutting out this pass in here, and everyone's tucking in to force the pressure all in this area. If they switch, everyone has to shift across. The same thing happens. Triangles in space, and everyone has a job to do to close down that space. So it may be a lot to take in at the moment. I'm probably going to do more clips when it comes to Jose Mourinho's signings. Say, for instance, he goes in and he brings in a Kante. Maybe I'll do a tactics, if you guys are willing to see it, on the fact of what N'Golo Kante will mean for Manchester United's midfield. But I think there's a lot of work to be done for Jose Mourinho. But this is just kind of a starting implication of the things that you're going to see from a Jose Mourinho Manchester United. At times, it may not be the most attractive football. And I don't think this year defensively Manchester United were as bad. They did have one of the better defensive records in the top 5. I think Tottenham was the only one that was better. And going forward is a big thing that Manchester United have to look to try and, I would say, form that attractive football, but at the meantime still get those results. And Jose Mourinho isn't known for going and playing that attractive football to get results. And Manchester United fans need to be aware of that and understand of what they're signing up for. It's not always going to be pretty, but at the end of the day, what will look pretty is the trophies in the trophy cabinet. As always, I want to get your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You want to slag off my bow tie, my haircut? I don't think you should. But anyway, in the comment section below is where we'll have that conversation. On Twitter as well, at Francis_Maxwell. Instagram, at Francis Maxwell Host. TYT Sports on all social platforms. And come back again for more tactics. See you soon.